What double standard in society goes generally unnoticed? Story 1. If you manage your disability well despite the difficulties it presents, you're then not considered disabled enough to qualify for any of the social care support you most likely need to continue to manage your disability and live well. My mom has cancer. She's on disability because most days she's too sick to work. There are days when she feels great, though, and wants to do things on those days. Her neighbor helps run the local food pantry and said that she would love her help on the days when she feels okay to work. My mom is afraid because people keep telling her horror stories of people losing disability because they volunteered a couple of days a week. There's no way that she can work a 9 to 5, but she also doesn't want to just sit at home all day every day either. Sadly, this is true. Losing benefits just because you occasionally sometimes have enough energy to volunteer a couple of hours here and there is a thing. So messed up. When I managed a retail store, I had a lot of disabled employees. Whenever they got a raise, I would have to watch their hours and make sure they'd still qualify for benefits. It was annoying because I had good employees who were capable of working more than allowed, but they still weren't able to work full time. Yes, that sucks. Or if you retire earlier, you lose 6% of your benefit from full retirement age. But then if you retire early, but continue to work and earn like over some meager amount of $18,000 per year, the government will reduce your Social Security benefit by $1 for every $2 you earn. WTF, you earned all of your Social Security. It should never be reduced. And if it is, then let it happen after you might earn some decent amount of money, like $80,000 a year. Elected government positions used to be about public service, not as a career. Instead of their cushy medical care, they should be getting nothing more than Medicare, which is deemed good enough for the rest of us. Those career politicians with nice six-figure pensions, how about reducing their pensions every year by 6% for every year they continue to work after retirement age? Put fossils like Mitch McConnell out of work and get some younger progressive blood into government instead of a bunch of stodgy old relics long past their effective expiration dates. Story 2. Canceling appointments. If I cancel an appointment, I get charged $50, like a doctor or therapist. If I'm walking out the door and they call and cancel, no consequences. My partner recently got charged $50 for a missed appointment, but they also demanded it be paid in cash. I'm like, wait, they charge you money for a missed appointment? That's stupid, but a lot of people do it, unfortunately. But demanding it in cash specifically makes me question whether it's even legal. That's sketchy. I'd ask to see that in writing with the paperwork that you initially signed that it must be in cash. But to be clear, the top comment says missed appointment policies you signed before treatment making you pay a range of dollars is super common and basically a boilerplate template in the industry. Can range from 24 to 48 hours required notice. Some offer courtesies like 1 to 2 a year they don't charge. Some don't offer any. It's all up to the provider or their group and is included in the paperwork. F that. Sounds like they're trying to quietly pocket the money. Make them put it on digital paper. Source: work for a medical software company. Think EHR/EMR. This drives me absolutely mental. I had a doctor do this to me, and then when I was on my way to my rescheduled appointment, I had a bad case of vertigo hit me right before I needed to drive. So I called and let them know that I was coming, but I had vertigo, and I was driving slowly so as not to kill myself and others. I needed the appointment. I couldn't wait 2 more weeks, and I might be a tiny bit late. I was 3 minutes late when I arrived. The receptionist gave me a tube about it and how the doctor may not have time for me. I admit that I lost it and became a full-on Karen. I yelled at her that if the doctor gets to cancel my appointment at a moment's notice for her personal life, then she can damn well wait for me to drive in when I have vertigo. Surprisingly, the receptionist backed down immediately and no one said boo to me about it when I got in. I felt bad for going off on someone, but I also felt like the system is weaponized against you. I hate the do as I say, not as I do attitude. I have a good story for this. I once paid a $300 deposit to a tattoo artist whose secretary came back a couple of weeks before the appointment and said that he had overbooked and needed to push the appointment out. I texted him and said, no biggie, I'll just take my $300 back. I didn't want to wait that long. Important. It was not custom art. It was a photo from the internet. The artist said that's not how deposits work, and I said I don't think you understand how deposits work, and he refused to send me my $300 back. I always wondered what could have been done legally in that situation. Story 3. People are encouraged to reach out and ask for help when they are struggling with mental health, but still stigmatized if they have a mental illness. Some of the people who I knew always went around advocating for mental health and were some of the first people to dismiss me when I developed depression. Posts all day on social media about mental health awareness, but then turn around and tell me to man up or just straight up yell at me and swear at me. I would also say people are encouraged to reach out for help, but most mental health services are sorely lacking. In college, I remember all these materials encouraging students to access counseling services if needed. I tried to do so half a dozen times, and the waitlist, the hoops you have to jump through, etc. just made the whole process disheartening and stifling, and eventually I just gave up. I was trying to help an acquaintance of mine who is poor and has a lot of mental health issues. I tried reaching out on her behalf to a lot of the services that promote themselves as being available for her demographic. In the end, it all fell through in a pretty similar way to my other experience above. In a progressive city like mine, there are tons of flyers you see around town, in buses, the local media, and touted by government officials for mental health and other social services that make it seem like all you have to do is reach out and ask. From my experience, these services are usually a complete train wreck, and actually being able to access them is near impossible. I've worked in social work, so I have tried to hook people up with these things a lot. We had a couple of students when I was growing up who had severe autism or other mental disabilities. They would join us in classes a lot of the time, and I find it easy to interact with them because I've been doing it since I was a kid. I never thought anything of it until my mom mentioned it one day, saying that she just doesn't know how to talk to people with disabilities because they weren't in the same school as her growing up. I think it's the same with mental health. It's not talked about in school from the very beginning, so people don't know how to approach it and talk to others about it. They feel uncomfortable, so they just end up avoiding the conversation. If it's normalized in our youth, it'll carry with us into adulthood and beyond. A long time ago, a former coworker committed suicide. My other former coworkers posted about it for a while after, mostly platitudes about if only we knew they were struggling, and if anyone ever needs help, just reach out. I finally told one of them that I thought the posts were interesting considering I'd overdosed while working there after reaching out many times to people I'd thought were good friends, only to have people stigmatize and low-key ridicule me when I did. Everyone knew I was on medical leave for mental health issues, even if they didn't know about the overdose, yet no one reached out, and they mainly ignored me when I came back. This all happened nearly 20 years ago, and this particular Facebook interaction happened probably 10 to 15 years ago. I'm stable now. I don't remember what the reply was, just that it was a lot of backtracking and fumbling and apologizing. All too often I see people using the memory of a person's suicide to virtue signal when they can't be bothered to care about the people in their lives who are still struggling. It's so gross to me. Story 4. I saw a post on Facebook in a group that I'm in recently. It was a selfie of a mother with her little boy in the back seat eating a pudding cup with no spoon, and she had captioned it, making sure he's making his future girlfriends happy, or something along those lines. I was disgusted by it and my boyfriend laughed. He tried to tell me I was being stuck up and a prude about it. I asked him if I was a father posting a picture of his daughter eating a popsicle and captioned it similar to making future boyfriends happy. Would you feel the same way? He looked like I slapped him in the face, but he instantly got what I was saying. Sexualizing children in any capacity is gross AF, and even if it happens to be little boys. People just need to do better and let kids simply be kids without putting sexual undertones to it. So weird. Unfortunately, women and mothers can get away with inappropriate sexualization way more than men and fathers, just based on the fact that men are stigmatized as baseline sexual predators, so they must like anything sexual. My mom told me I have a Calvin butt my entire childhood and has continued to make lewd comments about me and my brother's asses into adulthood. It really messed me up. I can't ever not feel like a creep when it comes to sexuality. No idea how to be sexually healthy. Thanks, Mom. One of the biggest arguments my girlfriend and I have ever had was because I thought children shouldn't be wearing a bikini because of its history. It was created by a guy wanting to show as much skin as possible. The original didn't even have a top with his intention, that the women should be topless. She felt that the only way I could think it was inappropriate was because I was sexualizing children. Story 5. Attractive and popular people can get away with some foul crap compared to the average person. Pretty privilege is a very real thing, and I have seen some awful, toxic, and cruel behavior from people who are considered conventionally attractive, who get a free pass for the same thing a person not seen as attractive wouldn't. Most discouraging is that we have studies where teachers even treat cuter kids with positive bias. It starts really early, and no wonder it shapes people's entire personalities and expectations on how others interact with them. I've seen it in action with my daughter. I don't ever remember being called cute or pretty, even as a child, and beautiful would have been laughable, but I see my daughter, who is blonde and blue-eyed, already getting cute privilege from the age of 2. Not just from adults either. I've seen her go up to groups of kids and ask to play with them, and they actively want to play with her simply because she looks nice. I used to be nervous about approaching groups of my peers because the chances of getting ridiculed or rejected were high. On the one hand, I'm happy for her. On the other hand, I feel very ill-equipped to guide her in dealing with it. This is why I have such a problem when people mention how someone looks when they do something problematic. He's too cute to be doing that, as if being terrible is a trait that only ugly people have and should have. On the other hand, if you get a job or a status when you are average to ugly looking, people will assume you did it through hard work. If you are attractive, no matter how hard you actually worked, people will assume that the job was handed to you on a platter and that you, in the end, don't deserve it. Also, if you are attractive, you have double the pressure to remain attractive for as long as you are alive. Heaven forbid you age or gain weight like most people do as they get up in years. No, once you are deemed attractive, people expect you to stay frozen in that state until you are buried in the ground. And I say that as someone who is not attractive, but knows people who had panic attacks because they were getting crow's feet, or they were starving themselves because they had to stay slim. Staying attractive seems so exhausting, like it's a full-time job. Story 6. I gotta give you 2 weeks notice if I quit, but you can fire me at any point? Nah. I've just walked out of jobs before. The reason you give a 2-week notice is not to burn bridges. If you don't need the reference and aren't ever going to reapply, quit however you like. I have one black mark in my professional experience. It was a small family company that was just not a good fit. I quit within my probationary period. I was so nervous about having that sort of job on my resume that it didn't occur to me that I could just omit it, until someone told me that it was a thing and to explain the 3-month gap as making sure I had the right opportunity. I want to be in my next role for as long as I can, so I'm being very deliberate in my next step. That was a perfect way to show that I am not desperate if nothing else. I worked in a job that would fire 95% of people who put in a 2-week notice because of our security contract. It was sad, but still entertaining that people would put in a 2-week notice and didn't believe that they would be walked out like the others before lunch. One dude whispered to me maybe 30 minutes after he put in his notice and saw his badge wasn't working. I gave this company 20 years and they can't even let me work out the week, get me a card, or say bye to everyone. Like, what the heck did you expect? You saw them quietly walk people out with tenure for 2 decades, and you thought you were special? It was a debt collection company. It was explained to me that people got walked out immediately to prevent them from tampering with accounts. I saw firsthand someone leave for the day with a big-ass smile on his face because he canceled like $100K in post-dated payments and double-charged around 10 grand in post-dated payments. They had to sell the accounts because getting most of these people and businesses back on the phone was damn near impossible. Story 7. People with blinding headlights can shine them at your face because the car came that way, but you can't flash your high beams back at them to let them know that you can't see without being an a-hole. It's the people that drive up close behind me at night with the bright-ass headlights in my rearview mirror that drive me nuts, especially when there are 2 lanes going the same direction and I'm in the right lane. Like, get in the left lane and stop riding my ass, please, and no one else is on the road at night. Sometimes I purposely slow down so that they'll pass me. Yeah, I'll never understand riding someone's ass when there's an open passing lane. Just no reason to be doing that in that situation. Back off or pass. But I see it all the damn time, so it doesn't bother me much anymore. I do the same. Slow down a bit until they're annoyed enough to pass. I think this should be ticketable. X number of lumens above Y feet in height equals fix-it ticket with heavy fines if you don't. So many of these that are problematic are put on aftermarket, and there is a correlation. The brighter the aftermarket lights, the more likely the driver will behave like an a-hole. Stay in the left lane while going slower, speed up when you try to pass, tailgate you after you do pass, and/or tailgate you in traffic when there's nothing you can do. Much of this can be fixed by just angling the lights down correctly so it's on the road, not in my mirrors and blinding oncoming traffic. I was once pulled over by a police officer because I flashed my headlights at him. I had no idea it was a police car, but I was at a stop sign in a residential area, and there was a vehicle stopped a block ahead facing me with high beams on. It was night and these things were bright. I flicked my brights. No reaction. I flicked them again. Okay, fine, this guy's not budging. After stopping for about 10 seconds, I figure I'll just squint and go. Right as I passed him, I saw the driver's side spotlight turn on and I knew I was screwed. He turns around, puts his lights on, and pulls me over. Another police car pulls up across from us and both of them get out of their SUVs. He was alright and let me go, but I told him exactly what had happened, and he said he thought maybe I was trying to flag him down since they were looking for someone in the area. Very unsafe practice, especially for someone in law enforcement, but this is why I have a dash cam in my vehicle now. Story 8. We feel so much compassion towards disabled people, but our policies require them to live life in deep poverty with crappy medical care while we run around saying how every life is precious. Sure, yup, and they're not allowed to talk much about it or they get ostracized. We don't like feeling bad about the conditions they live in, but instead of changing them, we just exclude them or ask them to shut up about it and keep pretending that disability benefits support them just fine. To get disability pay, you are required to be destitute. Your best bet is to just sell crap or work under the table, but the wrong person saying they saw you do something can make you lose it. It's terrifying that people say good. My autistic roommate needs government assistance. He can mask for a while but gets tired rapidly, so he sometimes works part-time at minimum wage to supplement the poverty tier government aid, but there's a gotcha. If he makes too much, they take the excess he earned, so long as he's in the aid program. Poof. He's not allowed to be comfortable financially. He's punished for being neurodivergent. I was just talking about this with my mom. I'm currently on Medicaid and get all of my pills for free, whereas my mom works a full-time job 40+ hours a week and has to pay for them. Hell, one of my best friends literally can't get a full-time job because she has a lot of health issues and wouldn't be able to afford it without Medicaid. Story 9. I'm expected to make it through an entire workday while it's snowing outside, while children are allowed to stay home and drink hot chocolate and go sledding. Absolutely unfair. I'm 29. Jobs are necessary, and missing a few days of school doesn't hurt anyone, except parents who don't have childcare and need to work. My son missing school is fine, but if I just don't go to work, the property I take care of will suffer, as will the people who stay there. Also, hey, kids should be kids. If missing a day or two of work puts your family in jeopardy, then hey, maybe go to work. If I miss a day or two of work, you know what happens? Absolutely nothing. I get paid the same and I just pick up tasks where I left them. The same thing I do every Monday morning. If it makes you feel any better, normally schools around here close if the wind chill makes it -40 or so. One time the school I went to was like the only one in the state that stayed open. Why? I have no idea. All I know is whoever made that decision was an idiot. That same school also didn't take the day off when it was a federal holiday, except Thanksgiving, and maybe Christmas break, which covered New Year's. So my parents both would get to stay home all day and I'd still have to go to school. Most schools take federal holidays off, but for some reason mine didn't. They said there was a reason for it, but I never heard what that reason was. I'm sure it was something dumb. The point is that the school was notorious for a lot of dumb decisions. Story 10. The way we view emotions. If a man cries or shows fear, it is instantly taken as a weakness while being socially accepted by women. If a woman shows anger or asserts dominance, it is taken badly, whereas those emotions are socially accepted by men. Also aging. Women aging means they're bad, washed up and need to settle down. Men aging means they're good, wisdom, getting better with age, and embracing the gray. It's funny how in some households any visible emotion is perceived as manipulative. I've seen kids crying and their parents ask them, "Do you think that's going to help?" They're not crying to manipulate you, they're crying because they're tired and overwhelmed, and yes, they want something, but in the present context, they're having difficulty managing their reaction to not getting it. Which, by the way, sadness and frustration are an entirely normal response to not getting what you want, and tears as an expression of that isn't really hurting anyone. Would you prefer they express those emotions instead of yelling or hitting? We need to recognize and appreciate acceptable ways for all genders to express the full range of emotions in our shared culture. Otherwise, we're going to continue having people shoving all their unacceptable emotions down, and a natural consequence of that expectation is people exploding and hurting others, or becoming so disconnected that they hurt others through their distance and absence. The aging thing is so enmeshed in how we view things. It's actually astonishing how much we have been socially conditioned as far as we view aging men and women. So many people say men age better than women. They're 50 and even hotter. No, literally no. It's just how we've been conditioned to regard things. Gray hair on men equals silver fox, on women equals old. Wrinkles on men equals refined, manly. Wrinkles on women, old. People will look at Pedro Pascal and say, "He's so hot." I agree, but I could literally Photoshop all of his exact wrinkles, which are not perceived as flaws at all, but just as additions to his handsomeness, and place them on, oh let's say, Zoe Kravitz, and people would say she looks old. Even if they still think she's hot, those same wrinkles would be subconsciously viewed as a detriment. It's really bizarre how society has tricked us like that. A lot of people don't realize how much the culture that surrounds us even affects how we view things and what we find to be attractive. So true. We always talk about how men in society have to shove down their emotions without acknowledging that anger is an emotion, but rarely do we talk about how women are expected to do the same by never showing anger. All my life I've had to shove down my anger, and it usually ends up coming out as tears, the more socially acceptable way for a girl or woman to express emotion. You're either weak or emotional or a crazy person and can't win. Now that I'm getting older and I'm more self-aware, I express healthy anger when needed. Story 11. We live in an extroverted world. In many Western cultures, being outgoing, sociable, and outspoken is often celebrated and encouraged. It's seen as the norm to want to chat, network, and be the life of the party. But when it comes to introverts who may crave quiet, solitude, or just less social interaction, the script flips. It's socially acceptable to nudge the quiet person in the room and say, "Why don't you talk more?" But imagine telling a chatty person, "Can you be quiet for a bit?" It would be considered rude or offensive. This double standard underscores a deeper societal bias towards extroversion. The noise and buzz of constant interaction are often valued more than the quiet, reflective spaces introverts thrive in. It's like we're saying one way of interacting with the world is better than the other, when in reality both have their strengths and should be equally respected. In a world that can't stop talking, sometimes we forget the power of silence and introspection. An extroverted introvert. I worked with a really talkative lady and didn't want to be rude, but she would spin any topic into an hour-long conversation. I started talking to her exclusively about Pepsi and Skechers, random as hell. But she requested to work at a different site because she said I was strange and that was fine by me. During parent-teacher conferences, literally the phrase I heard most was, "He's too quiet." I got straight A's, completed all projects, and even joined a bunch of clubs. Still, the main comment any teacher ever had was, "He's too quiet and needs to participate more." And that was the only takeaway my parents had. None of the positives mattered, so they'd throw me into speech classes and humiliation scenarios. I despised my teachers so much for it. I was perfectly fine socially. Yep, this is quite true. After traveling to Japan, I realized how loud Americans are. You can hear them from across the city. But seriously, it also explains why there are so many grifters and scam artists in the US, because if someone is outgoing and has a sales personality with charisma, our society automatically views that as a safe person to interact with and trust. I will say Japan is a country of introverts. That is why I enjoyed it so much, because I am also an introvert. It was refreshing to go into restaurants, and it was less noisy with less chatter, and lower-pitched voices as opposed to the loud screaming that you typically see in American restaurants and bars. Being talkative also invokes a sense of egocentrism, as a person is always craving attention by talking and being social. Some of the most talkative people can sometimes be hard to connect with, as they don't ask questions or listen. Story 12. Being a morning person and getting up early to get a bunch of stuff done, then going to bed early is considered virtuous and mature. Being a night person and staying up late to get stuff done, then sleeping late the next day is considered disorganized and lazy, even if you did the same amount of work and slept the same number of hours. I have colleagues who work from 6 a.m. to 3 p.m. and people constantly chirp about how efficient they are. But when someone at my office asked if they could work 11 a.m. to 8 p.m. because that fits better with their body's energy cycle, they were mocked for wanting to oversleep like a teenager, and the request was denied. I occasionally get hit with insomnia. I tend to take the opportunity to work through the night and rest through the day if I can. Even with days completely free from meetings, some jobs would have something to say about it. Buddy, in 2 nights I've done what would have taken you a week. I'm going to bed. Oh my gosh, seriously. Maybe I'm hurting your point when I say this, but on the weekends, I don't have anything in particular planned. I sleep until noon. I still shop, go to the gym, see a movie, chill, etc. The same amount of mundane stuff I would do if I woke up at 8. But no, I'm a child for sleeping late, even though I go against the way my body works during the rest of the week, so I can be an adult and have a job. Story 13. Alcohol is the only drug people look down on you for not using. If you don't drink, they think it's because you have a problem, or you messed up and now can't drink somehow, some way. It is all your fault, and it's considered sus if you don't drink. Nobody questions why you don't do cocaine or weed. I'm extremely sensitive to the taste of alcohol, so I don't drink because everything just tastes like alcohol to me. Anytime I mention this to people, they're always like, no, you just haven't had the right beer or whiskey or tequila or bourbon yet. It doesn't matter that I know many guys who take their alcohol very seriously and have tried some embarrassingly expensive liquors. They all taste more or less the same to me. Story 14. I solely raised my daughter as a single father from the time she was a year old until she was almost 6, when I married my then wife. The number of people who have asked about my daughter's mother just to reply with, oh, she must have had PPD, or there must be a mental illness involved, or maybe she will come around in a few years, is absolutely staggering. Like, no man, she just decided she wanted to go to a party instead of being a mom to our child. No child support, no financial or emotional contribution, nothing. Hell, I couldn't even get a copy of my daughter's health insurance card when her old one expired because I wasn't on the paperwork, despite the fact that I was the one who filled out the paperwork for it at the hospital the day after she was born. It's infuriating knowing full well that had the roles been reversed, and I'd have been the one to leave, I'd 100% instantly be considered a deadbeat father. My dad was a single dad because my mom abandoned me at a McDonald's. Same thing, no child support or anything. Refused to give him my birth certificate or social card. Nothing. Main one that pissed my dad off was random people at Walmart saying, "Aw, are you babysitting today?" and then laughing their asses off. Like, no, he was a single father with absolutely no support, working 24-hour shifts sometimes just to afford basic things like bread. I didn't realize how bad all the comments were until I was fostered for a bit. Oh, and bras. Took like 2 years for me to get bras because I was short, so when my dad took me, it looked like a 30-year-old man was just looking at children's bras and everybody would stare at him like he was a creep. And bathrooms. A father taking a baby girl to the bathroom is a huge issue, but I've never once received any weird looks taking my son to the women's restroom. Solidarity, brother. My ex left me with 3 under 5 when she bailed, and I dealt with the same garbage. There are no daddy and me playgroups. I was turned out of single-parent support groups because the other female parents were uncomfortable with a man around. That and, "Aw, it's so nice to see you giving mommy time off, grocery shopping on the weekends. Damn, I haven't slept in 2 days. I'm out of diapers and formula, and I'm pretty sure my 3-year-old is chewing gum from under one of the shelves. Mommy doesn't exist. I'm about 2 seconds from giving you the chair Undertaker style." Story 15. The justice system. There are definitely multiple justice systems depending on things like class and race. While it's definitely noticed, it's not like anything is actually being done about it, so by practical standards it goes unnoticed. As a white guy who had a boys will be boys issue that landed me in court at 18, my sentence was no fine and an absolved record after 6 months of probation. My lawyer's defense was I knew his grandfather and he was a great man. Wasn't anything that would have been jail time for anyone, but a significant fine and a permanent mark on a record would probably be the norm for someone whose parents didn't hook them up with a lawyer who knew the judge. I saw this play out in an arrest video. An old white man in his 70s punched a young black woman right in the face for parking in a no parking spot. She was with her sister. She and her sister attacked the man back. He started swinging around the metal top of a trash can trying to clobber them with it. One of the 2 women jumped on his back to stop him. When the cops showed up, they arrested the black woman and took her to jail because she punched a 70-year-old person. The guy, although he started the altercation and used an object that could have caused grave bodily harm, only got a citation. It pisses me off even to think of it now. Story 16. This is probably small potatoes, but it's kind of crazy that people are comfortable demanding height minimums on dating sites and just in conversation. Quite a few Tinder profiles say must be over 6 feet. It's the only demand on a physical attribute that is commonly casually stated. It's totally okay to feel that way, but it seems kind of rough to remind every short guy swiping that he has limited options. I'm over 6 feet, and it still kind of pissed me off to see it. I have short friends. I always imagine the painful little ping they'd feel anytime they saw it. I teach math to college students. The number of my students who can't give me even a rough guess of what 6 inches looks like, let alone 6 feet, makes me feel like this is more an ideology that some girls or women feel they need to assert in order to feel better about themselves. Like my ideal man is 6 feet with a 6-figure salary. It's meaningless because half my students wouldn't be able to say the number 120,000 pounds aloud correctly. They don't know what their standard is. They haven't even ever earned a salary or paid any tax. They're 16, 17, 18, never paid a bill, never done anything except scroll TikTok. Maybe they'll grow into something eventually, but their standards right now are warped by social media and middle-class aspiration. Hopefully this will change as they grow up. Now I've depressed myself. Sigh. Thanks for watching until the end. If you have a similar story to these that you want to share with us, please leave it in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, please leave us a like and subscribe. For more videos like this one right now, please stop by our channel. Thanks again, and see you next time.